In a forgotten Midwestern town in 1954, a widowed journalist was about to unlock secrets that powerful men had killed to protect. What started as purchasing a derelict property for 80 cents took a shocking turn when she pried open a cracked mirror and came face to face with decades of buried sins. Ruth Ellison wasn't your typical small-town returnee. For 10 years, she had spent her life chasing truth in Cleveland's newsrooms, known for her relentless pursuit of stories others abandoned. Now at 32, widowed and broke, she bought Samuel Cutter's abandoned barbershop, not for business, but for solitude. When she discovered hundreds of confession notes hidden behind the triptych mirror, she had no idea she was walking into a conspiracy that stretched back to 1931. Ruth found recordings that would reveal not just adultery and theft, but blackmail, corruption, and murder, including the barber's own death. The current sheriff's father, the beloved reverend, and the town's entire power structure had built their empire on whispered sins extracted from men sitting in that chrome and porcelain chair. What began as a search for quiet became a fight for survival. Eleanor Pike would die in flames for helping her. Tommy Keene would risk everything to stand beside her. And Ruth herself would face down a sheriff's revolver while the barbershop burned behind her. The town would never be the same after she proved that truth always grows back, no matter how many times they try to shave it away, because some chairs remember every secret. And some women refuse to stay silent. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I bought a barbershop for 80 cents on a Tuesday that smelled like rain and regret. The auctioneer's voice bounced off the courthouse walls, flat and bored. Going once for 80 cents. Anyone? No. Sold to Miss Ellison. Miss, not Mrs. Not anymore. The key felt heavier than it should have when the clerk dropped it into my palm. Brass, tarnished, warm from his pocket. Behind me, someone coughed. I didn't turn around. Didn't need to see their faces to know what they were thinking. Ruth Ellison, back in town after all these years. Ruth Ellison, whose big city journalism career dried up like creek water in August. Ruth Ellison, widow at 32, buying a dead man's shop with loose change. Let them think it. Main Street looked smaller than I remembered. Sun-bleached awnings hung limp over storefronts that hadn't changed names since I was a girl. The traffic light at the corner blinked amber, stuck that way for months, according to the grocer's wife. Nobody bothered fixing it. Nobody bothered with much in this town, unless it affected Sunday, services or property values. The barber shop sat wedged between Harlan's hardware and an empty lot where the dry goods store burned down in 47, red and white pole out front. Paint peeling like sunburned skin. Windows so filthy I couldn't see inside. The sign above the door read, Cutters in faded gold leaf, the apostrophe missing its tail. Samuel Cutter's place. Sam the barber. Sam who listened to every man's troubles and vanished one harvest night in 1931. 23 years gone, and the town still couldn't decide if he'd run from scandal or into something worse. The key stuck in the lock. I had to jiggle it twice before the door groaned open. Dust motes hung in the air like suspended time. Everything inside wore a coat of grey. The floor, the counter, the single barber chair positioned dead center like a throne nobody dared claim. The chair faced a triptych mirror, its middle panel cracked in a spiderweb pattern that caught the afternoon light and threw it back broken. My footsteps echoed. The shop wasn't large, maybe 12 feet wide, 20 feet deep. A shelf still held bottles of tonic and pomade, labels curled with age. Straight razors lay in a tray, edges dulled by rust. A calendar on the wall showed October 1931, a harvest scene with pumpkins and corn shocks, the month Sam disappeared. I set my typewriter case on the counter and circled the chair. Porcelain and chrome, the kind with a footrest and headrest, probably expensive when it was new. The leather seat had cracked but not torn. I ran my finger along the armrest and found initials carved into the metal, SC. Something about that chair made my skin prickle, the way it sat commanding the room. The way the mirror reflected it 3 times over, as if one chair wasn't enough to hold all the men who'd sat there. I moved to the mirror, studying the crack. It started at the top left corner and branched down and across, creating sections like a jigsaw puzzle. When I leaned closer, I saw something odd. The crack didn't go all the way through. The mirror was 2 pieces of glass with space between them. I pressed my palm against the center panel. It gave slightly, hinged. My heart kicked. I pried at the crack with my thumbnail until the panel swung open on tiny concealed hinges I hadn't seen before. Behind the mirror, a hollow space ran the width of the frame, maybe 6 inches deep. Inside, stuffed and stacked and wedged, were photographs, hundreds of them. I pulled out the first stack. Black and white, edges crimped, showing men in the barber chair. Different men, different eras, judging by their clothes and hair. Some smiled. Some looked grim. All faced the camera directly, as if they knew they were being documented. Beneath the photos, folded papers. Notes written in careful script on varying scraps. Letterhead, butcher paper, the backs of church bulletins. I unfolded one at random. I took money from the offering plate to pay my gambling debts. The reverend trusts me to count it. I have stolen from God and my neighbors for 11 months. Forgive me. Signed. Dated April 1929. I opened another. I struck my wife across the face when she questioned where I'd been. She wears long sleeves to church now. I'm not the man my son thinks I am. Signed. Dated June 1930. Another. S. Cutter's chair hears what God will not. This is my confession. I cheated Widow Harmon out of her land deed. I changed the survey markers while her husband lay dying. She lost everything and I gained 40 acres. The guilt eats me, but I cannot undo it now. Signed. Dated November 1930. My hands shook as I laid them across the counter. Confessions, private shames. Sins whispered in a barber's chair and written down. Preserved behind a mirror like specimens in jars. The scope of it staggered me. How many men had sat in that chair and unburdened themselves? How many secrets had Sam Cutter collected? And why, outside, footsteps on the boardwalk? I turned as a shadow filled the doorway. Well now, the voice came warm and smooth. Ruth Ellison, welcome home. Sheriff Dale Givens stepped inside, removing his hat. He was 40-something, with silver threading his dark hair and a smile that probably charmed church ladies and intimidated drunks in equal measure. I remembered his father from childhood. Same steady eyes, same politician's handshake. Sheriff. I moved to block his view of the counter. Just getting acquainted with my purchase. 80 cents. He chuckled, setting his hat on the shelf. Practically a gift. You planning to reopen the shop? Town could use a good barber. I'm a journalist, not a barber. That's right. He moved closer, hands clasped behind his back. Heard you worked for a paper up north. Detroit, wasn't it? Or Chicago? Cleveland, past tense. I didn't elaborate. His eyes roamed the shop, taking inventory. They lingered on the chair, the mirror, the counter where I stood. This place holds a lot of history. Sam Cutter was a fixture here. Shame how things ended. How did they end? Never proven. His smile thinned. Some said blackmail. Others said he got mixed up with the wrong people. Folks remember him fondly, mostly. Good listener. Kept confidences. Apparently. I gestured to the notes spread before me. Found these behind the mirror. Seemed to be personal letters. Confessions, actually. Dale's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. He picked up one of the notes, read it, set it down carefully. Private matters. Probably best left buried with the men who wrote them. Most of them are dead. 23 years is a long time. People move on, die, forget. He met my gaze directly. You planning to do something with these? I'm a journalist, I repeated. Investigating stories is what I do, was what you did. He said it kindly, like a correction rather than an insult. Things are different now. You're home. Home is about peace, not digging up the past. He placed his card on the counter next to the notes. Anything you need, Miss Ellison. Anything at all. My office is 2 blocks over. After he left, I locked the door and returned to the notes. My hands no longer shook. They moved with purpose now, sorting by date, by handwriting, by the name signed at the bottom, One name repeated across several notes from different years. S. Cutter's chair, here's what God will not. Not just any chair. This chair. The confession chair. I sat in it, testing the weight. It creaked but held. From this angle, I could see how the mirror reflected the entire shop. How anyone sitting here would see themselves tripled, confronted by their own face as they spoke their secrets. Sam Cutter hadn't just listened. He'd recorded, preserved, created an archive of sin. But why? Night came early in October, and with it a chill that crept through the shop's cracks. I worked by lamplight, spreading notes across the counter like a surgeon arranging instruments. Chronological order first, then by subject. Then by signatures, patterns emerged, the earliest notes dated from 1927. Simple confessions then, small thefts, white lies, moments of cowardice. By 1929 the content darkened. Adultery, financial fraud, violence against women and children. The handwriting remained steady across all of them, as if the act of confession itself was ceremonial. Practiced. 31 showed the sharpest concentration. 15 notes from July alone, 22 from August through October. Then nothing. Sam Cutter disappeared in late October 1931, and the confession chair fell silent. I cross-referenced signatures with the town directory I'd found in a drawer. Councilmen, bank managers, deacons. The town's leadership, past and present, had sat in this chair and spilled their secrets to a barber with a hidden agenda. A phrase appeared in multiple notes from different men. The reverend says, unburdening cleanses the soul. Reverend. Not a priest. This was Protestant country. But which reverend? The town had 3 churches in the 30s. I needed newspapers, church records, something to anchor these confessions to the community's official story. A small brass screw caught the lamplight from beneath the chair. I knelt, running my fingers along the footrest. The screw was loose, threads stripped. When I removed it, the footrest lining shifted. Underneath, a groove ran along the wood, deliberately carved. Too precise to be damaged. I pressed along the groove until something clicked. A hidden panel dropped down from beneath the seat, hanging on a small brass hinge. Inside the cavity, wrapped in oilcloth, sat a leather-bound ledger. My breath caught. The ledger was organized like a register. Dates in the left column, initials in the middle. Amounts on the right, ranging from $5 to $200. Some entries had notations: harvest relief, widow's fund, road improvement, but the dates didn't match any historical records I knew. Harvest relief in January? Widow's fund in amounts that could buy a car? These weren't charitable donations. They were payments. I flipped to the last entries. October 1931. The amount spiked. $300 to C.H., $500 to D.G. Dale Given's father. Had to be, and C.H.? I returned to the confession notes, searching for those initials. Found one dated September 1931, the handwriting more hurried than others. Forgive me, Reverend. The chair was your idea, the listening your command. But the recordings were mine. I cannot unknow what I know. I cannot unhear what they've told me. You said this would bring them closer to righteousness. Instead, it has brought them to your pocket. I want out. I want no part of what you plan for the harvest. God sees what we do in his name. God remembers, unsigned. But the handwriting matched Sam Cutter's notes in the margin of the ledger. Recordings. He'd made recordings. I examined the chair again, this time running my hands along every seam and joint. Behind the headrest, I found another compartment, smaller than the first. Empty now, but the velvet lining showed circular impressions. Something had been stored there. Cylinders, perhaps. Wax recording cylinders. My father had owned a phonograph with cylinders when I was young. He'd played them on Sunday afternoons, opera mostly, the arias echoing through our small house. The cylinders were delicate, easily damaged. But they recorded sound, captured voices for posterity. Sam Cutter had recorded confessions. The ultimate evidence, the ultimate leverage, a cleansing ritual, the notes called it. Unburden your soul to the barber, write down your sins. Let the chair hear what God will not. But Sam had turned confession into currency, and someone, this Reverend C.H., had turned currency into control. the town's most powerful men caught in a web of their own making. I checked my watch. Past midnight. The hardware store wouldn't open until 8. I needed to sleep, needed to think clearly. But one question burned in my mind as I locked the shop and walked to my rented room above the grocer's. If Sam Cutter held this much power, why did he disappear? Why didn't he use it? And where were the recordings now? Eleanor Pike's house sat at the end of Elm Street, narrow and white with black shutters and a porch barely wide enough for 2 rocking chairs. The yard was neat, the hedges trimmed, the mailbox painted. Everything about the place said control, precision, a life lived by chosen rules. I knocked at 9 in the morning. Footsteps inside, slow but steady. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 70s, with steel-grey hair pinned tight, sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the posture of someone who'd spent decades telling people what to do and expecting compliance. Miss Ellison, not a question. She'd been expecting me. You'll be wanting to talk about Sam. How did you know? You bought his shop. You're a journalist. And Sheriff Givens stopped by yesterday asking if I'd seen you. She stepped aside. Come in before the neighbors start inventing stories. The interior matched the exterior. Tidy, spare, functional. No photographs on the walls. No knickknacks on the shelves. Just a clock ticking above the mantel and the smell of lemon oil and menthol. Eleanor gestured to a chair at the kitchen table. Coffee? Please? She poured 2 cups from a pot that looked older than I was, then sat across from me. Her hands, I noticed, trembled slightly as she lifted her cup. Not age, nerves. I was engaged to Samuel Cutter, she said without preamble. We were to be married in November 1931. Then he vanished, and I spent the next 23 years being pitied and suspected in equal measure. Suspected of what? Helping him blackmail half the town. She sipped her coffee. The story went that Sam collected secrets for profit, that I, as a nurse, helped him gather medical information on influential families, that we planned to bleed them dry and run off together. But that's not what happened. No. Eleanor set down her cup. Though the truth is hardly more flattering to me, I knew what Sam was doing. I helped him arrange it, and I said nothing when it all went wrong. She rose, moved to the sink, unlocked a cabinet beneath, and removed a tin bread box. Inside, wrapped in a tea towel, sat a small leather journal. My ledger, Eleanor said, placing it before me. Appointments, dates, times, every man who sat in Sam's chair for what the Reverend Colton Hayes called cleansing sessions. Reverend Colton Hayes, C.H. The pieces clicked together. I opened the journal. Neat columns, nurse's handwriting. Names, dates, appointment times. Some marked session, others recording, still others payment. Hayes started it, Eleanor continued, sitting again. 1927, after the bank crisis when half the town lost their farms. He told his congregation that burden sharing would heal the community. That confession to a neutral party, not him, he was too holy, would ease their guilt and bring them back to righteousness. Her mouth twisted. Sam was that neutral party, the friendly barber who listened without judgment, who offered advice and hot towels and the sense that someone understood. But he was recording them, not at first. The recordings came later, after Hayes realized how valuable the information was. Men confessed to adultery, and suddenly Hayes knew which councilman could be pressured to vote his way. Men confessed to theft, and suddenly Hayes knew which bank managers owed him favors. Eleanor's voice hardened. Sam became uncomfortable with it, wanted to stop. Hayes convinced him they were doing God's work, keeping the righteous in line, protecting the town from itself. The ledger I found shows payments. Hayes was blackmailing them by then. Small amounts at first. Donations to the church to relief funds Hayes controlled. By 1931, he'd expanded. Land deals, political appointments. Anything he wanted he got because he had Sam's recordings as insurance. Where are the recordings now? Eleanor's jaw tightened. Sam hid them. Told me only that the last truth would sit where every man planted his feet. Then he went to confront Hayes, and I never saw him again. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a yellowed postcard. This arrived 2 days after he disappeared. I read it. Close the chair or the town closes you. No signature, Eleanor said. But I knew Hayes's handwriting from his sermons. I closed Sam's shop, locked it, and never went back. I thought if I kept silent, they'd leave me alone. She met my eyes. They did. And I've been a coward ever since. You're talking to me now. Because you're not leaving this alone, are you? You're like Sam. You think truth matters more than safety. She stood, moving to the window. The men who frequented that shop are mostly dead. Their sons run the town now. Sheriff Givens, Mayor Pruitt, Bank President Marsh. All of them have fathers who sat in Sam's chair. All of them have secrets their families paid to bury, and Reverend Hayes still preaches every Sunday. 80 years old and sharp as the razors he once used for metaphors. Eleanor turned back to me. If you pursue this, Miss Ellison, you won't just be exposing dead men's sins. You'll be threatening the legacy of everyone who matters in this town. They will not thank you. They will not cooperate. They will do what they did to Sam. Make me disappear? Or discredit you so thoroughly that no one believes a word you write. She returned to the table, placed her hand over mine. Sam said the last truth would sit where every man planted his feet. The footrest, Miss Ellison. Check beneath the footrest. Whatever he hid there is the key to everything. I left Eleanor's house with her journal hidden in my bag and her warning ringing in my ears. The walk back to the shop felt different now. Every face I passed seemed to carry suspicion. Every glance felt like surveillance. The barbershop stood waiting, its windows reflecting clouds, its door locked as I'd left it. I let myself in, set my bag on the counter and approached the chair where every man planted his feet. I'd already removed the footrest lining and found the ledger. But Sam's message suggested something more specific. I knelt, examining the footrest itself. The wood was solid oak, edges rounded smooth by decades of shoes. I pressed along the sides, searching for seams or catches. Nothing. I lay on my back and looked up at the footrest from below. There, barely visible against the dark wood, were scratches. Not random, letters, carved into the underside. Where only someone looking would see them. HW 31 Harvest. Week 1931, I returned to the hidden compartment beneath the seat, where I'd found the ledger. The space was larger than necessary for just the book. I felt along the back wall of the cavity, found a second panel, and pried it loose. Behind it, wrapped in waxed canvas, sat a single wax cylinder. My hand shook as I lifted it out. The label, written in Sam's careful script, read, Hayes Harvest Week Final. I needed a phonograph. The hardware store might have one, or the library, or... The shop door rattled. Locked, but someone was testing it. I shoved the cylinder into my coat pocket, replaced the panels, and stood. Through the window, Sheriff Givens's face appeared. He knocked. I opened the door. Sheriff, Miss Ellison. He stepped inside without invitation. Working late nights, I hear. Lights burning past midnight, according to the patrol officer, cataloging the notes. It's fascinating history. His eyes scanned the shop, pausing on the chair. Find anything interesting? Local men's private regrets from 20 years ago. Nothing that would interest a journalist looking for current stories. I smiled. You were right. This is better left as history. Glad to hear it. He moved to the counter, picking up one of the notes I'd deliberately left in view. A harmless confession about stealing apples. These things can hurt families, reputations. Even if the men are gone, their children remember them fondly. No need to tarnish that. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I agree. He set down the note, studied me for a moment. Eleanor Pike mentioned you stopped by. I wanted to hear about Sam Cutter from someone who knew him. And what did Eleanor tell you? That he was a good man who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. That she misses him still. Dale's expression softened into something that might have been genuine sympathy. Eleanor's had a hard life, living in the shadow of someone else's scandal. I'd hate to see her dragged through that again by well-meaning questions. It wasn't a threat. Not quite. But the message was clear. I have no intention of hurting anyone, Sheriff. I believe you, Miss Ellison. He retrieved his hat from the counter. Just remember, sometimes the past is past for good reason. Sometimes digging it up does more harm than leaving it buried. After he left, I locked the door and stood very still, listening. The shop around me felt alive with secrets. The chair a throne of collected sins, the mirror a window into decades of men's darkest moments. Sam Cutter had disappeared because he'd tried to expose the truth. Eleanor Pike had survived by keeping silent. I touched the cylinder in my pocket, felt its weight and promise. What would I choose? Rain arrived at midnight, tapping the windows like impatient fingers. I sat in the back room of the shop, the wax cylinder on the table before me, untouchable as evidence I couldn't yet hear. A phonograph. I needed a working phonograph. And in a town this size, options were limited. The library might have one for their historical collection. But Mrs. Henderson, the librarian, attended Reverend Hayes's church and reported gossip faster than the telephone operator. The school had retired theirs years ago. That left private collections, or the hardware store's attic, where old man Harlan stored everything he couldn't bear to sell or throw away. I wrapped the cylinder carefully and hid it in my coffee tin, wedged behind the loose board in the back room. Then I returned to the main shop and continued cataloguing notes by lamplight, arranging them chronologically across the counter. If Givens returned, I wanted him to see me doing exactly what I'd claimed, treating this as harmless history. Around 2 in the morning, footsteps passed on the boardwalk. I dimmed the lamp and waited. The footsteps paused outside the shop, continued, then faded. I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding. When I finally left at dawn, the rain had softened to mist. Main Street lay empty, storefronts dark, the traffic light blinking its endless amber warning. I walked to my room above the grocer's, climbed the narrow stairs, and fell into bed fully clothed. Sleep came shallow and restless. In my dreams, men sat in the barber chair one after another, faces blurred, mouths moving in confession I couldn't hear. Behind them, the mirror reflected not their faces, but their sins. Adultery, theft, violence played out in the glass like moving pictures. I woke to knocking. Sat up disoriented, late afternoon sun slanting through the window. Miss Ellison, a man's voice, unfamiliar. You asked about a phonograph? I opened the door to find a man in his early 40s, lean and weathered, wearing work clothes and a veteran's wary eyes. He held his cap in both hands. Tommy Keene, he said. Harlan mentioned you were asking about old equipment. Said you might need a hand-moving furniture in the shop. I hadn't asked Harlan anything yet, but news traveled in small towns, and apparently someone had decided I needed help. Come in, I said, stepping aside. Tommy entered, glancing around the small room with the quick assessment of someone trained to evaluate spaces for threat or escape. War had marked him. I could see it in the way he positioned himself near the door, the way his hands stayed loose and ready. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully. The shop does need work. Roof's leaking, floor needs repair, but I can't pay much. Wasn't asking for pay. He met my eyes directly. My father used to go to that shop. Sat in that chair. Came home one night in 1931, looking like he'd seen his own grave, and disappeared 2 days later. If there's truth in that place, I'd like to help find it. The air between us shifted. An ally, or a complication. What did your father do? Railroad work. Bookkeeping mostly. Tommy's jaw tightened. He was honest. Careful with numbers. Whatever happened in that shop, whatever he confessed or heard, it scared him enough to run. I made a decision. I found confession notes, dozens of them. Men writing down their sins, their crimes, all collected by the barber, Sam Cutter. Yes, but he wasn't working alone. The Reverend, Colton Hayes, organized it. Called it a cleansing ritual. Tommy absorbed this without visible surprise. Hayes has run this town since before I was born. Everyone knows it. No one says it. I need a phonograph, I said, working with a good needle. There's a recording I need to hear. Harlan's got one in his attic. Let me borrow it tonight, after the store closes. Not a question. A statement of intent. We returned to the shop together as evening settled. Tommy assessed the roof damage, made notes, then helped me move the heavy barber chair to the back room where prying eyes couldn't see it through the windows. His strength surprised me. He lifted one end alone, muscles cording in his forearms. "This chair," he said, setting it down carefully. "My father sat here. Told Sam Cutter something. Wrote it down, maybe. If he did, the note might still be in the collection. I don't want to read it." Tommy straightened, brushing dust from his hands. "Whatever he did or didn't do, he's gone. Reading his shame won't bring him back, but it might explain why he left. Some explanations hurt worse than mystery." We worked in silence after that, patching the roof, replacing broken floorboards. Tommy had a craftsman's precision, measuring twice, cutting once, wasting nothing. He spoke little, but his presence felt solid, trustworthy. As darkness fell, he left through the back door and returned an hour later carrying a wooden case. Inside, wrapped in cloth, sat a portable phonograph, brass horn, hand crank, needle arm intact. "Harlan won't miss it until Monday," Tommy said. "I'll return it then." I retrieved the cylinder from the coffee tin. Tommy watched as I fitted it onto the spindle, adjusted the needle, wound the crank. The mechanism was simple but precise. "One chance to hear this. Wax cylinders degraded with each play. Ready?" I asked. He nodded. I engaged the needle. Static crackled through the horn, then voices emerged, tinny but clear. A man, not Sam Cutter, spoke first. "September 12th, 1931. This is my confession and my warning." Tommy's breath caught. "That's my father," the voice continued. "I kept the books for the railroad and for certain men in town. Money moved through accounts that shouldn't exist. Payments made to people who weren't employees. Reverend Hayes and Sheriff Givens's father orchestrated it. Called it community investment, but I've seen the ledgers. I know what they've done." Static washed over the recording, then another voice, Sam Cutter's, I assumed. "This endangers you, telling me. I can't hold it anymore. The harvest collection is a lie. They're using church donations to buy land, to pay off councilmen, to control votes. And there's more. A man named Whitlock threatened to expose them. He's gone now. Disappeared after the harvest dance. They said he moved east, but his wagon is still in Marsh's barn. His horse still boarded at the livery." Silence. Then Sam's voice, quiet. "What do you want me to do with this?" "Record it. Keep it. If anything happens to me, someone needs to know." A pause. "I'm taking my family and leaving tonight. Don't try to find me. Don't mention this to anyone. Just keep the recording safe." The cylinder ended. Static filled the horn. Tommy stood motionless, hands clenched. "He tried to protect us. Protect the truth. He succeeded. You survived, but Whitlock didn't." Tommy turned to me. "They killed a man. Covered it up. And my father knew." I stopped the phonograph, removed the cylinder carefully. "This is evidence. Not just of blackmail, but of murder. Who's going to believe a 23-year-old recording? Hayes is still preaching. Givens' son is sheriff. They own this town. Eleanor Pike believes it. Others might too. Eleanor's one old woman with a grudge. I'm a journalist with a story." Tommy's expression hardened. "You're a woman in a town run by men who've killed to keep secrets. They'll destroy you. They'll try." A sound outside, footsteps close. Tommy moved to the window, peered through the gap in the curtains. "Someone's watching the shop. Sheriff? Can't tell. But they're not moving on." We extinguished the lamp and waited in darkness. Minutes passed. Finally, the footsteps retreated. "They know you're getting close," Tommy said. "The visit from Givens, the questions. Now someone's watching. Then I need to move faster." An envelope slid under the front door, white against the dark floor. Tommy retrieved it while I relit the lamp. Inside, a single sentence in careful script. "The chair keeps memories. People don't." No signature. But the message was clear. A warning, or a threat. Tommy returned the next 3 evenings. We worked without discussion of what came next, focusing on repairs, replacing window glazing, sanding the counter, restoring the shop to function if not beauty. The work gave my hands purpose, while my mind circled the same questions. Who sent the note? How much did they know? What would they do to stop me? On the third night, Tommy brought sandwiches from the diner and coffee in a thermos. We ate in the back room, the phonograph between us like a third presence. I found my father's confession, he said quietly. In your pile of notes. I waited. He wrote about falsifying railroad accounts, about knowing men died in accidents that weren't accidents, about being too afraid to speak. Tommy stared at his coffee. He called himself a coward. He tried to expose the truth. That took courage. He ran instead of fighting. He survived. Kept his family safe. That's not cowardice, Tommy. That's choosing which battle to fight. And you're choosing to fight this one. Someone has to. He looked at me then, really looked. My wife died 3 years ago. Fever. I wasn't here, was working a dam project 2 states over. By the time I got back, she was buried. His voice stayed level, controlled. I don't let people in anymore, Miss Ellison. Don't make promises I can't keep. But I'll see this through with you. Whatever happens. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We finished the repairs by midnight. The shop looked almost respectable now. Clean windows, solid floor, the chair gleaming in its backroom exile. Tommy packed his tools while I locked away the notes and cylinder. I'll talk to Hayes, I said. Arrange an interview. See what he reveals when he thinks I'm harmless. He's not stupid, Ruth. First time he'd used my given name. It felt like a shift, an acknowledgement that we'd moved past formal distance into something more like partnership. Neither am I said. Reverend Colton Hayes received me in his church office on Thursday afternoon. The room smelled of furniture polish and old books, shelves lined with theological texts and local histories. A large oak desk dominated the space, its surface bare except for a Bible, an inkwell, and a silver letter opener shaped like a cross. Hayes himself looked like central casting's vision of a small-town preacher. White hair combed back. Reading glasses on a chain, cardigan over pressed shirt and tie. His smile reached his eyes, warm and practiced. Miss Ellison, what a pleasure. He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. I was delighted to receive your note about documenting our church's history. I settled into the chair, notebook open, pen ready. The Barbershop has such rich history. I thought the church records might provide context for the community in that era. Splendid idea. What specifically interests you? The late 20s, early 30s, just before Sam Cutter disappeared. I found references to a cleansing ritual men participated in. Wondered if it had church origins. Hayes's expression didn't change, but his fingers moved to the letter opener, turning it slowly. Interesting. Where did you encounter these references? In notes left in the barbershop. Personal letters, confessions, really. Men writing about their struggles, seeking absolution. Ah. He leaned back, folding his hands. The confession tradition. Yes, I'm familiar with it. When I first came to this congregation in 1926, I found the men isolated in their burdens, proud, unable to speak of their failures even to God. He stood, moving to the window overlooking the cemetery. I suggested they might find relief in sharing those burdens with a neutral party. Not me. I was too much the voice of judgment in their eyes. But Sam Cutter, the barber, he was everyone's friend, trustworthy, discreet. So you started the ritual. I encouraged it. Men would visit Sam, talk through their struggles, sometimes write down what troubled them as a form of release. Sam would listen, offer perspective, help them find their way back to righteousness. He turned back to me. It helped many men, Miss Ellison. Saved marriages, prevented worse sins, and the notes they wrote. Where did those go? I assume Sam kept them briefly, then destroyed them. Confidentiality was paramount, but he didn't destroy them. I have hundreds. Hayes's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he violated those men's trust. Sadly, Sam Cutter was not the man we believed him to be. Was he blackmailing them? The evidence suggested as much. Several men reported receiving demands for money, threats of exposure. Sam disappeared before we could confront him fully. Hayes returned to his desk, sat, folded his hands again. It was a dark chapter for our community. One I'd hoped was finally buried. Did the blackmail stop after Sam left? It did. And Whitlock, the man who disappeared around the same time. The temperature in the room dropped. Hayes's smile remained, but his eyes went flat. George Whitlock moved east. Family emergency. His departure had nothing to do with Sam or the barbershop. His wagon's still in town. Is it? I wouldn't know. I'm a minister, not a sheriff. Speaking of sheriffs, did Sheriff Given's father participate in the cleansing ritual? Many men did. I don't recall specifics. He stood, signaling the end of our meeting. Miss Ellison, I appreciate your interest in history, but some stories cause more harm than good when resurrected. The men who wrote those confessions are mostly dead. Their families remain. Dragging up old sins serves no purpose but pain. I close my notebook. Unless those sins include murder. Strong word. Dangerous word. He walked me to the door. Be careful with accusations, Miss Ellison. Slander can destroy a reputation and a career very quickly. On the wall near the door, I noticed a framed program, Harvest Relief Fund. October 1931. Below it, a list of donors with amounts. Large amounts. I recognized names from the confession notes. Generous community, I said. We take care of our own. I left the church feeling Hayes's eyes on my back. As I crossed the street, I saw Sheriff Givens entering through the vestry door. Not a coincidence. They were coordinating, watching, planning. The net was tightening. Eleanor Pike called that evening. Come tonight. 10 o'clock. Bring the recording. I arrived at her house with the cylinder wrapped in cloth and Tommy at my side. Eleanor met us at the door, face drawn, hands shaking worse than before. They know you talked to Hayes, she said, ushering us inside. The telephone operator is his niece. She listens to every call, reports everything. We settled in her kitchen, curtains drawn, a single lamp burning. Eleanor brought out her phonograph, older than Tommy's borrowed machine, but functional. Play it, she said. I need to hear what Sam recorded. What I was too afraid to hear when he was alive. I fitted the Hayes Harvest Week cylinder onto the spindle. Wound the crank. Set the needle. Static crackled, then a voice emerged. Reverend Hayes, younger but unmistakable. October 15th, 1931. This is my confession, though I confess to no sin. God works through instruments. I am his instrument. The men of this congregation were lost, gambling, drinking, neglecting their duties. I gave them structure, purpose. The cleansing ritual brought them back to the fold. Sam's voice, careful, through blackmail, through accountability. I collected their written confessions, yes, kept careful records. When they strayed, I reminded them of their commitments. Is that not a pastor's duty? You took money from them, donations. For the harvest fund, for improvements, for land purchases under false names. I've seen the deeds, Colton. Silence. Then Hayes, colder. Sam, you're misunderstanding the complexity of shepherding a community. I'm understanding murder. George Whitlock discovered your land scheme. Threatened to expose you. Now he's gone. He left. His horse is still here. His wagon. His coat on a nail in his barn. Sam's voice shook. What did you do? I protected this town from a troublemaker, from scandal that would have destroyed families. You should understand that, Sam. You helped create the system that allowed such protection. I helped you trap men with their own words. I won't help you bury bodies. You already have. Hayes's voice turned silky. You recorded every confession, kept every note. Your hands are as dirty as mine. If this comes out, you hang beside me. Then I'll hang. But I'm taking these recordings to the state marshal. Are you? A pause. Sam, you're making a terrible mistake. For yourself, for Eleanor, for everyone who trusts you. Trust? Bitterness laced Sam's voice. You've poisoned trust, turned confession into control. Used God's name to a sharp sound, a door opening. A new voice, gruff. He's got the recordings out. Dale Givens' father, Sam, Hayes said. Put those away. Let's talk reasonably. No more talk. Sam's voice, farther from the recording device. I'm leaving tonight, and these come with me. Sounds of struggle. Something crashing. Then static. The recording ended. In Eleanor's kitchen, the three of us sat frozen. Rain hammered the windows, a sound like nails in a coffin. They killed him, Eleanor whispered. Sam tried to leave, and they killed him. I rewound the cylinder, played it again. The struggle was brief but unmistakable. Sam Cutter had died in that barbershop, murdered by the men whose sins he'd recorded. This is evidence, Tommy said. Real evidence. We take it to the state police. And say what? Eleanor's voice cracked. That a recording from 23 years ago proves murder. They'll say it's fake, that Sam made it to frame Hayes before running. Hayes has connections across the state. He'll discredit it before it's even heard. Then what? I asked. We sit on this? Let them win? We build a case. Eleanor stood, moved to the window, peered through the curtain. The confession notes, the ledger, the recording, my journal. We document everything, create a timeline no one can ignore, and we publish it where they can't suppress it. The local paper won't print it. Then we go elsewhere. Regional papers. The wire services, she turned back to us. But we have to move quickly. They know you're digging. They're watching. As if summoned by her words, a shadow moved past the window. Tommy was at the curtain instantly, looking out. Someone's in the yard. Eleanor's face went white. They've never come here before. Is there a back door? I asked, through the kitchen. But glass shattered. A bottle sailed through the window, flames erupting from its mouth as it hit the floor. Kerosene fire spread fast, hungry, eating across the old wood. Out! Tommy grabbed the cylinder, shoved it at me, then half-carried Eleanor toward the kitchen. I followed, smoke already burning my throat. The back door was locked. Tommy kicked it open as flames climbed the curtains behind us. We stumbled into the yard, rain soaking us instantly. Figures moved in the darkness. Running away or waiting, I couldn't tell. Eleanor collapsed on her knees in the wet grass, watching her house burn. Tommy tried to pull her father away, but she resisted, transfixed. Everything I had of Sam, she whispered. Gone. Not everything. I held up the cylinder, safe in its cloth. We have the truth, sirens wailed. The volunteer fire brigade arrived in minutes, but Eleanor's house was old timber, dry as kindling. They saved the neighboring homes, but little else. Sheriff Givens appeared, dripping rain, face grave. Eleanor, thank God you're safe. What happened? Arson, Tommy said flatly. Givens' eyes narrowed. That's a serious accusation. Did you see who did it? Someone threw a firebomb through her window in this rain. Fire marshal will determine cause. Could have been an accident. Old wiring, a lamp. It was deliberate, Eleanor said, finding her voice. They want me silent. Who's they, Eleanor? Givens crouched beside her, paternal, concerned. You're in shock. Let the paramedics check you. But Eleanor pulled away. I'm going to the hospital myself. Ruth, Tommy, take that evidence somewhere safe. Givens' head snapped toward me. Evidence of what? History, I said. Just history. He didn't believe me. I didn't care. The fire had changed everything. This wasn't about uncovering the past anymore. It was about surviving the present. Eleanor died 3 days after the fire. Smoke inhalation, the doctor said. Her lungs couldn't recover. She'd spent 73 years breathing, and in the end, someone else's violence stole that simple right from her. I stood at her hospital bedside, an hour before she passed, watching the labored rise and fall of her chest. Her eyes opened briefly, found mine. Ledger, she whispered, the word barely audible. Clinic basement. My file. Eleanor, rest. Under nursing records. 1931. Her hand gripped mine with surprising strength. They can't. Burn everything. She pressed something into my palm. A small brass key, warm from her skin. Finish it, she said. Those were her last words. The funeral was Tuesday. Half the town attended, dressed in Sunday best, voices lowered in respect. Reverend Hayes delivered the eulogy, speaking of Eleanor's dedication to service, her quiet faith, her dignity in suffering. He met my eyes once during the service, his expression unreadable. Sheriff Givens approached me afterward, his hand on my elbow, gentle but firm. Miss Ellison, walk with me. It wasn't a request. We moved away from the crowd toward the cemetery's edge, where newer graves gave way to older stones worn smooth by weather. Eleanor was troubled, Givens said, carrying decades of grief about Sam Cutter. Sometimes grief makes people see conspiracies where there are only tragedies. Someone firebombed her house. The fire marshal ruled it accidental. Faulty wiring in an old home. That's a lie. His grip on my elbow tightened. Not painful, but unmistakable. Careful, Miss Ellison. Accusing officials of lying is a serious matter, especially for someone who's already strained her credibility by chasing ghosts in a barbershop. I have evidence. Of what? Old notes about private shame. A recording that could be staged? Eleanor's journal that shows nothing but appointment times. He stopped, turned me to face him. Even if you had proof of wrongdoing from 1931, everyone involved is dead except Reverend Hayes, and he's 80 years old with a congregation of 300 who'd swear he's never harmed a soul. Sam Cutter's recording means nothing without a body, without witnesses, without anything but the word of a man who ran away. Givens released my arm. I liked you, Ruth. I wanted you to settle here, find peace. But you're making that impossible. For yourself and others. Is that a threat? It's a reality. He glanced back at the crowd dispersing from Eleanor's grave. Go home. Write your articles about county fairs and church socials. Let the dead rest. He walked away, leaving me among the headstones with Eleanor's key burning in my pocket. Tommy found me there an hour later. The cemetery had emptied, only the gravediggers remaining to finish Eleanor's burial. He sat on a stone bench nearby, said nothing for a long time. I can't do this, he finally said. Can't watch someone else die for secrets that don't matter anymore. They matter. To who? The men who wrote those confessions are gone. Sam Cutter's gone. Whitlock's gone. Now, Eleanor, his voice cracked, how many more people have to die before you accept that some truths aren't worth the cost? Your father thought they were worth it. My father ran, chose his family over justice. Maybe he was smarter than us. I pulled out Eleanor's key. She gave me this. Said there's a ledger in the clinic basement. More evidence. She died making sure I knew where to find it. Tommy stared at the key. The clinic's been shut down for 2 years. Since Doc Warren retired, then no one will notice if we take a look. Ruth, I'm going tonight. With or without you. I stood, tucked the key away. Eleanor didn't die for nothing. I won't let her. Tommy closed his eyes, shoulders sagging. When he opened them again, something had hardened in his expression. I'll meet you there, midnight, back entrance. Thank you. Don't thank me. He rose, walked toward the cemetery gates. If we die doing this, I'll haunt you for eternity. The old clinic sat on the edge of town, a 2-story brick building with boarded windows and a foreclosed sign. Tommy arrived first, already working the back door lock when I approached through the alley. Breaking and entering, he muttered. Add it to the list of crimes I never thought I'd commit. The door opened with a groan. Inside, the smell of decay and old medicine hung thick. Our flashlights cut through darkness, revealing a hallway lined with empty rooms, exam tables pushed against walls, filing cabinets standing open and bare. Basement, I said. The stairs descended into deeper darkness, treads creaking under our weight. The basement was larger than expected, divided into storage rooms and what looked like a former morgue. Filing cabinets lined one wall, most already emptied by estate liquidators. I tried Eleanor's key on each locked cabinet until one clicked open. Inside, manila folders organized by year. I found 1931, pulled the records. Between patient files for September and October, a leather-bound ledger. Eleanor's handwriting filled the pages, dates, names, amounts. But these weren't appointment times. These were financial transactions. Money moving between accounts, paid to specific men on specific dates. Hayes's name appeared dozens of times. So did Dale Givens's father. This is it, I said. Proof of the blackmail operation. Names, amounts, dates. Tommy flipped through the pages. There's more. Look at the back. Inside the back cover, taped carefully, another wax cylinder. The label read in Eleanor's shaky script, Final Chair, Sam's last recording. My hands trembled as I lifted it free. We need to hear this, not here. If someone comes, footsteps above, heavy, multiple people. Tommy killed his flashlight. I did the same. In the darkness we heard voices. She'll come here. Eleanor told her something, I'm sure of it. Sheriff Givens. Then we wait. Reverend Hayes. Tommy grabbed my arm, pulled me toward the back of the basement. There had to be another way out. Old buildings like this always had coal chutes, service entrances, something. We found it in the far corner. A coal chute opening rusted shut but workable. Tommy braced his shoulder against it and pushed. The metal groaned, shifted, finally gave way with a screech that echoed through the basement. Down there. Footsteps pounded on the stairs. I shoved the ledger and cylinder into my coat and dove through the opening. Tommy followed, pulling the chute closed behind us. We tumbled down into an exterior coal bin, scrambled over the edge and ran. Behind us, orange light bloomed in the clinic windows. Fire, they were burning it. We didn't stop running until we reached the barbershop. I fumbled with my keys, got the door open, locked it behind us. Tommy collapsed against the counter, breathing hard. "They're destroying everything," he said. "Every piece of evidence. They'll burn the whole town to keep their secrets." "Not everything." I pulled out the ledger and cylinder. "Eleanor saved these, hid them where they wouldn't think to look. We have what we need. To do what? Who's going to believe us? Who's going to stand against Hayes and Givens?" "I will." I moved to the phonograph, still set up in the back room. And once people hear this, they'll have to listen. The cylinder was labeled "Final Chair" in Eleanor's handwriting, but beneath it, faint in Sam Cutter's script, "My confession." My goodbye. I fitted it onto the phonograph spindle with hands that had stopped shaking. Tommy stood behind me, one hand on my shoulder. We'd come too far to stop now. Eleanor had died for this. Sam had died for this. I engaged the needle. Static, then Sam's voice, older and tired. "October 30th, 1931. This is Samuel Cutter. If you're hearing this, I'm either dead or gone, and either way, the truth needs telling." A pause. The sound of him settling into the chair. I started the confession ritual with good intentions. Reverend Hayes convinced me it would help men, free them from the burdens they carried alone. And at first it did. Men came unburdened, left lighter. I listened without judgment, offered what wisdom I could. Another pause. Pages rustling. Then Hayes showed me what he'd done with their written confessions. The ledger of who owed what. The pressure he applied. The way he used their shame to control votes, land deals, appointments. I tried to stop him. He reminded me I was complicit, that my listening enabled his leverage. Sam's voice hardened. He was right. I enabled him, so I started recording the sessions without telling him, collecting evidence, names, dates, crimes, including Hayes's own confessions, because he got arrogant, sat in my chair and bragged about his genius. How he'd built a system no one could challenge. The recording quality shifted, as if Sam had moved closer to the device. George Whitlock discovered the land fraud, confronted Hayes, threatened to go to the state marshal. 3 days later, Whitlock disappeared. His wagon is in Marsh's barn, his coat in his own kitchen. But Whitlock himself? Gone. Static crackled. Hayes came to me the night Whitlock vanished, sat in this chair and told me everything. How they took Whitlock to the old cornfield, how Dale Givens's father struck him down, how they buried him under what's now the church parking lot. Hayes called it necessary protection, said it was God's will to silence a troublemaker. I felt Tommy's hand tighten on my shoulder. I recorded that confession. Every word. Hayes doesn't know I recorded it. Doesn't know I've hidden the cylinders where even Eleanor can't find them easily. These recordings are my insurance and my burden. Sam's voice broke slightly. I'm leaving tonight. Eleanor thinks we're running together, but I'm going alone. If Hayes discovers what I've done, he'll use her against me. Better she believes I abandoned her than watch her die for my mistakes. A long silence. The last truth sits where every man planted his feet. The chair remembers what mouths forget, and God judges what men think they've buried. The recording ended. Tommy and I stood in silence, the weight of Sam's final testimony settling over us like a shroud. He hadn't run. He'd tried to protect Eleanor, and Hayes had killed him anyway. The church parking lot, Tommy said. Whitlock's body is under the church parking lot, if it's still there. 23 years of weather, construction. It's concrete. They poured it in 1932, exactly where Sam said. Tommy's jaw clenched. I helped pour that concrete. Summer job when I was 16. They told us it was going over an old storage cellar they'd filled in. It was a grave. We have to dig it up. Prove what's there. With what authority? Sheriff Givens will stop us. Hayes will claim it's desecration of church property. I rewound the cylinder carefully. We need to publish first. Get this story into papers across the state. Once it's public, they can't suppress it. How long will that take? I can write it tonight. Telegraph it to the wire services in the morning. By afternoon, glass shattered in the front room. We both spun toward the sound. Fire bloomed in the barbershop's main space, spreading fast across the wooden floor. The same method they'd used on Eleanor's house. The same determination to destroy evidence. The back door. Tommy grabbed the phonograph while I clutched the ledger and cylinders. We ran for the back exit, but flames already licked up the walls, blocking our path. The window. I pointed to the small window high in the back room. Tommy shoved the phonograph through, then lifted me up. I scrambled out, landed hard in the alley, turned to help him. He was lifting himself through when the ceiling groaned. Fire had eaten through the support beams. The barbershop was collapsing. "Tommy!" He dove through the window as the structure behind him roared and crumpled. We rolled away from the building, coughing, singed. Alive. The barbershop, Sam's throne, the confession chair. The sight of so many secrets burned like a funeral pyre against the night sky. But we had the evidence. The ledger, the cylinders, Eleanor's journal pages tucked in my pocket. Everything Hayes and Givens had tried to destroy. "It's over," Tommy said, watching the flames. "They've won." "No." I stood, brushed ash from my coat. "Now we fight back." The fire brigade arrived within minutes, but the barbershop was already gone. I watched from across the street as water turned ash to black sludge, as the building collapsed into itself, as everything Sam Cutter had built became rubble. Sheriff Givens appeared at my elbow. In his hand, a revolver held low but unmistakable. "Miss Ellison, we need to talk privately." "I don't think so." It wasn't a request. He gestured with the gun toward the alley. "Move." Tommy stepped between us. "She's not going anywhere with you." "Stand aside, Keen. This doesn't concern you. Everything about this concerns me. My father, Whitlock, Sam, Eleanor, they're all dead because of you and Hayes. Because of their own choices." Givens' voice stayed calm, paternal. "Your father chose to run. The others chose to interfere. Ruth here is choosing to destroy this town's reputation over events that happened before she was born. Murder doesn't expire." "Deal?" Reverend Hayes emerged from the shadows behind Givens, Bible in hand, face serene. "Ruth, please, let's discuss this reasonably. You're upset, traumatized by the fire. Not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. You killed Sam Cutter. Your congregation's parking lot is built over George Whitlock's grave. And you've spent 23 years using men's confessions to control this town. Those are serious accusations." Hayes moved closer, flanked by Givens. "Accusations that could be interpreted as slander or as the delusions of a grief-stricken woman who's lost her way. I have recordings." "Sam's recordings?" "Including your confession about Whitlock's murder." Hayes's expression didn't change, but Givens's gun hand tensed. "Even if such recordings existed," Hayes said carefully, "they'd prove nothing. A man's voice on a cylinder claiming crimes without evidence, without witnesses, without bodies." He smiled. "You have nothing, Ruth. You've always had nothing. I have Eleanor's ledger. Financial records proving the blackmail operation. Eleanor's imaginings. A bitter woman's revenge fantasy. I have Sam's final testimony. His description of where you buried Whitlock. Hearsay. Inadmissible in any court. Then you won't mind if I publish it. Let the people decide." Givens raised the gun. "You're not publishing anything. You're going to give me those recordings, that ledger, and anything else you've collected. Then you're going to leave town tonight, or what? You'll shoot me? In front of witnesses." I gestured to the fire crew still working across the street. "Accidents happen," Givens said. "Especially around fires. Especially to people who don't know when to stop." Tommy moved faster than I'd thought possible. He grabbed Givens' wrist, twisted, and the gun discharged into the ground. The shot echoed across the street. The fire crew turned, shouting. Hayes ran. Tommy and Givens grappled. I dove for the dropped gun, came up pointing it with shaking hands. "It's over," I said. "Both of you. It's over." Givens froze, hands raised. Across the street, the fire chief was already running toward us, followed by a state marshal's car that pulled up at that exact moment. I'd made a long-distance call that afternoon to the state marshal's office. Told them everything. They'd been listening from the car, recording every word Givens and Hayes had said. The marshal emerged, badge gleaming. Sheriff Dale Givens, Reverend Colton Hayes, you're both under arrest. Conspiracy, attempted murder, obstruction of justice. Put your hands behind your heads. Givens complied, face ashen. Hayes stood statue still, Bible clutched to his chest. This is persecution, Hayes said. Religious persecution. You have no evidence. We have your confession, the marshal said. Just recorded it. Threatening a witness, admitting to covering up crimes. That's plenty to start. He nodded to me. Miss Ellison, you have the recordings? I handed them over. The cylinders, the ledger, Eleanor's journal, everything. There's a body under the church parking lot, I said. George Whitlock, buried in 1931. We'll dig tomorrow. The marshal gestured to his deputies. Take them in. Separate cells. As they led Hayes away, he turned back to me. Some chairs remember, Ruth. Some sins never wash away. You'll carry this burden forever. Is that what you wanted? No, I said. Justice is what I wanted. Eleanor deserved it. Sam deserved it. All those men who thought they were confessing to God, but were really feeding your greed, they deserved it. Justice. Hayes laughed, bitter. You've destroyed this town's peace for justice. See how they thank you. He was right in one way. The town didn't thank me. 3 months later, the article ran in 17 newspapers across 4 states. The confession chair, how a Midwest town's darkest secrets stayed hidden for 23 years. My byline, Eleanor's courage. Sam's recordings, transcribed and verified by audio experts. They found Whitlock's body exactly where Sam said it would be. Medical examination confirmed he died from blunt force trauma. Reverend Hayes and Sheriff Givens both faced murder charges. Dale's father was already dead, but his legacy crumbled. Hayes's congregation disbanded. The church sat empty. I testified at both trials, showed the jury the confession notes, played the recordings, walked them through Eleanor's ledger. The defense called me obsessed, vindictive, a woman scorned by a town that didn't want her. Some days I thought they might be right. Both men were convicted. Hayes got 20 years. Givens got 15. Tommy helped me salvage what remained of the barbershop. The chair somehow survived, scorched but intact. We kept it, evidence for the trials, yes, but also a reminder of what listening without acting costs, of what truth demands. I wrote Eleanor's obituary myself, called her a hero, a guardian of truth, a woman who chose courage over silence, even when silence would have saved her life. Her funeral drew 6 people, Tommy and me, 4 strangers from neighboring towns who'd read the articles. The barbershop lot stays empty. The town bought it, then couldn't decide what to build there. Some suggested a memorial. Others wanted it paved over, erased. So it sits, a gap-toothed wound on Main Street, grass growing through ash. I stayed. Bought a small house on the edge of town. Freelance for regional papers now, covering county board meetings and school plays. Normal news. Quiet news, but sometimes late at night I visit the empty lot. Stand where the chair once sat. Remember the weight of those cylinders in my hands. The sound of Sam's voice testifying from beyond the grave. Eleanor's determination even as her house burned. The townspeople still whisper about me, point me out to visitors. That's Ruth Ellison, the woman who destroyed our reputation, who dug up the past and cost us our peace. Let them whisper, truth always grows back, no matter how many times they try to shave it away. And some chairs, even burned to skeleton frames, remember every man who sat there, every secret spoken, every sin confessed. I kept Eleanor's key, keep it in my pocket warm against my skin, a reminder that some women refuse to stay silent, that some truths demand telling, that sometimes an 80-cent barbershop holds more value than anyone imagined. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.